I walked out of Star Wars, The Mandalorian and Grogu, wondering how a movie with this many recognizable Star Wars ingredients could still feel this empty. You've got Din Djarin, Grogu, the New Republic, Imperial warlords, the Hutt twins, Jabba's son, gladiator fights, bounty hunters, monsters, spaceships, and enough familiar designs to remind you what franchise you're watching. But most of it feels like decoration around a story that never becomes important enough for the big screen. Before I get into it, like and follow if you enjoy movie reviews where we actually say what we think, because this one really tested me. The Empire has fallen, but Imperial warlords are still causing problems across the galaxy. The New Republic hires Din Djarin and Grogu to help track down one of those remaining Imperial leaders. To get the information they need, Mando has to make a deal with the Hutt twins and rescue their nephew Rotta the Hutt, the surviving son of Jabba. Except Rotta doesn't believe he needs rescuing. He has become a famous gladiator, and he thinks he is one final fight away from paying off his contract and earning his freedom. Mando quickly learns that the entire situation is a setup involving Rotta's promoter, the Hutts, and the Imperial target. The New Republic is trying to find that is the actual movie, and honestly, it sounds more interesting when you explain it than it feels while you're watching it. The biggest problem is that this doesn't feel like one complete movie. It feels like several episodes of The Mandalorian edited together and projected onto a bigger screen. Mando finishes one mission, gets another assignment, visits the Hutts, searches for Rotta, discovers a betrayal, escapes, and then the story almost resets before building toward another action section. There are moments where you can practically feel where an episode would have ended. A movie needs momentum. Every scene should make the central problem feel more dangerous, more personal, or more complicated. Here, the story keeps stopping so Mando can receive another piece of information, visit another location, or fight another group of disposable enemies. Things happen, but the movie rarely feels like it is building. Rotta should have been the emotional center of the story. The idea is actually good. He is Jabba the Hutt's son, but he wants nothing to do with his father's criminal legacy. He explains that people used to hate him because of who his father was. He becomes a successful fighter, earns the crowd's respect, and believes he can create a life that belongs to him. There's a real character in there. But the movie treats most of that like information Mando needs for the mission. Rotta says he doesn't want to become Jabba. We understand the basic conflict, and then the story goes back to escapes, betrayals, and action. The son of Jabba the Hutt is trying to escape the shadow of one of the most feared criminals in the galaxy, and somehow the movie makes that feel like a side quest. That takes talent, just not the good kind. It also could have connected perfectly to Grogu. Rotta and Grogu are both children carrying legacies they never chose. Rotta is trapped by his father's name, while Grogu is growing up under the protection and teachings of Mando. The movie could have used Rotta's story to make Din question what kind of future he is creating for Grogu. Is he raising Grogu to become his own person, or just turning him into a smaller version of himself? That could have given the movie an actual emotional argument. Instead, Grogu is mostly used as a reaction button. He looks cute, he wants food, he touches something he was told not to touch. He gets into trouble, he uses the Force when the action needs him. Then everyone pauses so the audience can laugh at whatever adorable thing he just did. I like Grogu. Most people like Grogu. But liking a character is not the same as giving that character something meaningful to do. There's a sequence where Mando needs Grogu to help operate the ship while everything's falling apart. Mando is trying to guide him through the controls, Grogu is confused, and naturally he almost touches the missile switch. It is a fun little moment, but it also shows the movie's entire approach to him. Grogu is either cute, confused, hungry, or suddenly powerful. The movie keeps calling him Mando's apprentice, but it doesn't do enough to show what that actually means. What is Grogu? Learning? How's he changing? What kind of person is he becoming? The movie wants the relationship between Din and Grogu to be its heart, but too often it just repeats the same jokes and protective hair moments we already expect. Din Djarin has a similar problem. He is still cool. The armor still looks great. Pedro Pascal's voice still gives him personality even when we can't see his face. Watching Mando quietly enter a dangerous room and calculate how he is going to take everyone down is still entertaining. But what is new about him here? He accepts a dangerous job. He follows the trail. He realizes the people paying him aren't telling the truth. He protects Grogu. He gets betrayed. He survives. We have done this several times. The movie acts like placing Mando in IMAX automatically makes his story bigger. It doesn't. A bigger screen cannot create a character arc that isn't there. Even the Hutt twins' betrayal feels obvious. They send Mando to retrieve Rotta while planning to sell him out and benefit from both sides of the deal. That makes sense for the Hutts, but the movie presents it like a huge turn when these are criminals who look suspicious before they even open their mouths. Of course they're lying. The surprise would have been if they paid him honestly. The Imperial side of the story isn't much better. The remaining warlord gives speeches about how everything was better under the Empire and how the galaxy will eventually beg for its return. That idea fits the time period, but the character never becomes threatening enough to hold the movie together. He feels less like the reason this story exists and more like the target waiting at the end of Mando's mission. The action should have saved the movie, but most of it didn't work for me either. There are arena fights, shootouts, creatures, chases, and large battles. Some of it looks expensive, and this Star Wars world still has that great mix of dirty machinery, strange aliens, practical creatures, and ships that feel used instead of polished. I'll give the movie that, but action only works when failure matters. Most of the time I knew Mando would escape. Grogu would use the Force and the story would move to another location. The movie keeps getting louder without becoming more exciting. There is a huge difference between action happening and action mattering. Real talk, this movie isn't bad because it misunderstands Star Wars. It is bad because it understands exactly which Star Wars things people recognize and assumes recognition is enough. Here's a Hutt, here's an Imperial officer, here's a Mandalorian, here's Grogu being adorable, here's someone talking about the old protecting the young, here's this is the way. Okay, but where is the movie? That line about the old protecting the young and the young eventually protecting the old is clearly supposed to carry the emotional theme. And there are moments later where Grogu has to step up when Mando can no longer protect him. That should hit hard. But the movie hasn't done enough with Grogu's growth for it to feel fully earned. It wants the payoff of a coming-of-age story without spending enough time on the coming-of-age part. This is the way it used to feel like a belief. Here, it feels like a button the movie presses when it wants applause. The frustrating part is that there is a better movie trapped inside this one. Rotta rejecting Jabba's legacy, Grogu becoming more independent, and Mando learning that protecting a child also means preparing that child to survive without you could have formed one strong story. Instead, we get missions, callbacks, betrayals, cute Grogu moments, and action scenes connected by the thinnest emotional thread possible. So yeah, for me, Star Wars, The Mandalorian and Grogu is a 3 out of 10. Not because I hate these characters. That is what makes it more disappointing. I like Mando, I like Grogu, Rotta even has the beginning of an interesting story. But this doesn't feel like a movie worthy of bringing Star Wars back to theaters. It feels like a stretched out streaming adventure that knows people already love its characters, so it never works hard enough to give them a story worth caring about. This isn't the way. Let me know what you thought because maybe I'm being too harsh, but I genuinely don't know how a movie starring Mando and Grogu managed to make the galaxy feel this small.